Good afternoon. Hope you had a nice weekend. That is the closing bell. So we'll be going over the market and today's plays. We'll get to see where the Qs SPY and IW up finish the day. Let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. This is Ifan from the Strategic Day Trader, and this is your market wrap for August 23rd, 2021. Coming into today, bullish on the Qs, bullish on the SPY, and bearish on the IWM, but as we acknowledged on, that was probably Thursday, not a good time to be starting a new position on the IWM, shorting the position as it's been multiple bars down into support. And I expected the IWM to break out a week ago after doing this basing. It never triggered the bullish bias. We were neutral throughout this time, but I kind of expected it to do so. That's why I thought we should anticipate. It wanted to come in instead and has retested support and got the bounce. With the extent of the bounce, neutral on the IWM, you can see the hourly downtrend that we had is now over with today's gap up and some continuation. So the IWM, which just has been going sideways since the whole year so far is continuing to do that. Multiple bars up now into resistance. So no real bias here on the IWM. It's going to remain neutral going into tomorrow. But then Qs and SPY still bullish. New all-time highs for SPY, new all-time highs for Qs, right? And we found out pretty quickly that the downtrend that we had, basically Friday morning, told us right away, no longer bearish on the Qs and SPY. Wanted to see if we can get any continuation to this short hourly downtrend, but that's why we go with what the chart says, right? Chart said, okay, hourly downtrend is over, and then today we've got continuation on a breakout, so we're still bullish, okay? But multiple bars up now on the Qs and SPY. So bullish into tomorrow. We'll see. We can maybe get some kind of inside day or a small gap down just because today was a pretty decent looking kind of trend day. Basically just bullish all day here. A little bit of a drop into the end of the day. Okay, but same bias really as Friday on end of day Friday coming into today. Really only the IWM not as bearish proved today that it doesn't want to retest the lows from the pivot there, these lows. Okay. All right, let's get into today's plays. So the thing that I want to focus on today's plays are working from the daily and then drilling down to the smaller time frames. Okay, so we're going to go through some plays, look at some examples. Okay. Starting with the XERS, this was my first play of the day. This was a gap that I liked a lot. I want to see what kind of shock value we had after gapping over this base. So that's the event I like on the daily. We're gapping over the base, and I want to see if we can retrace back up potentially to 350 or so on the weekly here. Okay. On something like this, not as powerful. This is an example that I talked about as well as the semi, as far as ending the downtrend, but definitely some shock value there on the XERS as well. Okay, so the play on this, we just really played this opening range. So put all of these bars together and entry over the top and stop underneath the bottom. It looked fine. Got off to an okay start here, but not enough for us to get to target. I think it was only ever up, it looks like, about half an hour. So that, not enough for me, especially if I'm going to deal with something that's a little bit wild, okay, on the XERS. So this ended up not working, okay, took us out over here. And then from then on, if it takes out the lows like that, the morning goes into a downtrend, there's not going to be any more plays for me on that. So took a loss on the XERS, and I kind of knew that that was the way I wanted to manage it. That it was either going to be we get to the big target or it's going to stop out. I don't expect this to be easy to manage or easy to play. So, while I was on the mic, I think I made that pretty clear that this was gonna, kind of be an all or nothing kind of play. Okay, so that was the XERS playing it primarily because of the gap. Okay. Now, the only thing I gave you for the afternoon was the DVAX. Okay, and the reason why is that we have a very bullish daily, and then here was the breakout on the DVAX. Okay, over this. The numbers were 1330 by 1308. So really it was all of this together was what I was saying you can play. Okay. So this, you can see pretty bullish daily uptrend, weekly uptrend, okay? Because the gap itself is not really doing that much, right? You know, how many days is this really gapping over? And how bearish was it prior to the gap? It wasn't really that bearish, only clearing a couple days initially from the gap. So it's not that eventful of a gap, right? But it does show us from the beginning, okay, it's very, very bullish. And we're going to get a lot of bullish items today, and especially this morning, because the Qs and the SPY were bullish, right? And so the tough part on a day like today for the Qs, the SPY, and looking at the individual plays is determining which ones are worth playing, because you're going to get a lot of things that are just going to pull in as soon as the market does, okay? And what did, you know, the DVAX do, right? Market pulled in. This is still closing basically up at the high, just at the end of the day here. So DVAX, I thought, stood apart from a lot of other very similar intradays. So we'll take a look at some examples here. LXRX, okay, pretty bullish, right? Breakout here, okay, pretty bullish. But look at the daily. Daily into some congestion here, into some topping tails. And then when we look at the weekly, pretty damaged here, right? Like tried to bounce and then that got rejected, couldn't rally back up to the top. So when we look at the weekly time frame here on the LXRS versus the DVAX, clearly the DVAX has a lot more time frame alignment. Okay, so when we got something bullish on the intraday, so what did the LXRX end up doing? You know, it made an attempt to break out here. If I had played this, trail goes underneath these inside bars. So maybe you end up with a break-even play. This isn't really that bad either, but that's the reason for passing. That's the reason for not playing it, okay? Look at the quad U here, which I guess ends up kind of being a break-even play as well. Nice 15-minute chart here as the 20 MA is catching up, okay? But then you go to the daily, and you see the daily's into resistance, and then we take a look at the weekly. And again, you look at that weekly, and then you compare it to the weekly on the DVAX. DVAX is clearly much more bullish. Okay, and even if, let's say we don't include today's price action, right? Let's say, you know, because we know DVAX closed really strong up at the top, you know, maybe, you know, we don't want to be too influenced by just this day. But even prior to today, you can see the bullishness, right? And so, and then by comparison, we take that away. Okay, fine. Like we do want, you know, things not to be too extended on larger time frame, even the gap to be working against the larger time frame, right? So that it's more eventful. But running into resistance is not the kind of, you know, working against the daily and weekly trend that we want. We don't want it running right into resistance, okay? VLDR, another example here. 5-minute base breakout. 15-minute looked okay too. Here's the 5. Here's the 15. Okay, so 15 looks fine. This one, again, if I had played this, trail should go under the inside bar. So you probably lose a little bit on this because you see the volume picked up, big bar, turning into a breakout failure. Now, what's wrong with the daily? Okay, daily running right into resistance. Here, look at the weekly. Here's the weekly on the VLDR. Now here's the weekly on the DVAX. Again, pretty stark contrast, right? And especially on a lot of these, which are only clearing, like the VLDR, really from the gap, clearing one day. Eventually the bullishness does give you a few more that it clears. And then same with the U. This is a pretty low tier gap, right? So, I mean, you could lobby the same complaint against the XERS, that this also was a little bit against the was running into some issues with the larger time frame chart. But to me, the quality of the gap is significantly better than some of these others. So, you know, I'm willing to deal with a little bit of that daily resistance. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, and to get some follow through. It's also an island reversal, which is why I wanted to give it a shot. Okay. All right. So, that's going to be for every play. And that's not just for today, but I thought today it was especially important to kind of sift through some of this stuff and really determine, okay, which ones have a higher odds of working because the larger time frames are helping. And of course, on this, and this goes for every play that I'm going to play, even some of the ones that don't work, of course, is I want there to be a lot of attention being paid. You can see the DVAX, the volume today, VLDR, a little bit big, so that's not too bad. U, less than on Friday, but a little bit above average. So also want them to be not just limited to, moving up because the market is. So one way that we want to do that is make sure that, it's doing above average volume. And this DVAX already was by the time we played it in the afternoon. Okay, and then of course, no question the XERS, right? That's off the charts. That's really setting the upper range. If we go back, I don't know how many months till we get something that rivals that. Okay, so I mean, yeah, that's the standard approach. We're gonna do the same thing every day. It's always gonna be that kind of top-down approach. But I thought today, because of the bullishness in the Qs and SPY, there were a lot of kind of long plays that kind of ran out of steam early, just because the Qs had already moved up a lot. They looked really bullish, so you really had to find something that had a catalyst and had momentum. Okay, all right. Hope you did well today. We'll be back at it tomorrow, and I will talk to you then. Have a good evening.